Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show, coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska, where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Thank you, Scott. Hello and welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska show, coming to you from somewhere in Alaska where it's starting to rain here in South Central Alaska. We are the best place in Alaska for conservative news, where we are standing up for your constitutional rights every single day and your freedoms here on the Last Frontier. Big day today. We reached 100,000 comments on stories at mustreadalaska.com, and that is a really big number. So mustreadalaska.com has been alive and well for 5 years. And in those 5 years, I have personally approved 100,000 comments. So it is kind of a big deal because it actually takes a lot of time. And there are a lot of comments that do go through and a few that don't. And usually it's name calling. And whenever somebody calls somebody a Nazi, they immediately go into the garbage can because there's no need for that. And I try to keep things civil there in the comment section. I really appreciate what other people do too. I sometimes make a mistake and approve a comment that is not in good taste, but usually readers let me know and I go track them down and delete them. Appreciate that. And you can also find us there, of course, at mustreadalaska.com. We've had well over 18 million visitors to our website since we launched it. And John Quick is my co-host of this podcast that's been going on for over a year. And John, you're on the Kenai and you always have some interesting things to say. And are you there today?
I'm here today. Thanks so much, Suzanne. And one other stat I always like to point out is we do have a partner, Newsbreak, who owns the biggest news app on the iTunes and Android stores. And we've had 26 million impressions with them, all of our articles in the last 12 months. So we're pretty excited about that. It's a lot of people viewing our news from all over the world, which is pretty awesome. And we thank you for checking us out no matter where you check us out at. So I am here on the Kenai. Yep. And had a little bit of a run-in this morning.
Oh no, that's not good.
Yeah, I forgot my wallet in my wife's car. My wife is amazing, and she is doing substitute teaching here on the Kenai Peninsula. And so I had to run and go get my wallet from her car, and the car was locked. So I had to run into the school and see if she could unlock it when she was already started her classroom. And as I was waiting to see if I could get the keys from her, a unruly parent came in and was starting to cause a ruckus because COVID this, COVID that. Well, they weren't too thrilled about certain policies that the school had, or the school board really is the one who comes up with these policies, and was cussing and screaming and literally yelling at the staff. And the staff at that particular school is, I would say, 90% female. And this is a gentleman who was very angry.
No, gentlemen. No, not a gentleman. This is a boorish pig.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, he was very angry, and he was not going to hear any sort of reason from anybody. And so there's one male at the school, and I was sitting right there, and we kindly escorted this gentleman out of the building.
Ooh.
And on the way to his vehicle, this gentleman really was getting excited and wanted to fight the teacher that was with me. And I'll say this, for all the crap that teachers put up with, I personally really like our teachers out here in Nikiski. They're great teachers. I may not like the policies that the school board comes up with, but they don't come up with the policies. They just have to enforce them as teachers. And so this guy was making no sense and wanted to get into a fist fight. And so I had to put myself between him and the teacher and ask him to leave in the most nicest way I could without getting into a fist fight. And it could have very easily turned into a scuffle in the parking lot. But the teacher that was with me they showed the utmost amount of professionalism. Imagine somebody screaming and spitting in your face, and you having the cool, calm, and collectiveness to just keep asking this person to leave. That was the teachers today at the school. And so my applauding to them because they handled the situation really well. Those kind of things can go south fast,
Oh, yeah, they sure can.
fights
And
or guns or, the whole list goes on.
Yeah, when people are so emotional about this stuff, and I'm afraid that they've been watching CNN too much, and they've allowed themselves to sort of be infected with this mass hysteria. And a lot of people are starting to talk about this now. What is a sort of a Salem witch trial mass hysteria that's infected our entire country and in some ways our entire world? And we'll be hearing about this in the future as people in the future look back on this time and wonder what the heck happened to us that we fell for this so hard.
Yeah, I would just say my 2 cents of this whole experience is give the teachers a break sometimes, because they don't come up with the policies. The school boards do, and the superintendents do as well in some districts. And a lot of these teachers, not all of them, but a lot of them are just wanting to be in the classroom and teach, especially here on the Kenai Peninsula. And it's never a good thing to come in guns blazing with an attitude wanting to fist fight somebody. You're just never you're going to go out, handcuffed in a state trooper car is what's going to happen.
Well, and really, actually, it goes for the same here in Anchorage and other places in the state. And even if people are just, if teachers are masked because they have to be masked, they may not want to. They may not want to mask the children. They're just trying to do their job. They're trying to teach. They're making the best of a bad situation. Of course, you don't have as many communist teachers down there as we have. So up here, it's been crazyville in Anchorage this week. It started out on Friday when the Assembly set a meeting for Monday. That'd be today when we're taping. And they didn't really say what the meeting was about. It was just going to be about COVID policy. So that was just a sort of a general thing that they kind of came up with, COVID policy. So then on Sunday, I wrote a story saying, look at it's 19 hours before this COVID policy meeting of the Assembly, and they still haven't posted any documents about it. This qualifies as a secret meeting. They don't want people there. It was obvious.
Yep.
Well, luckily, a lot of people do Must Read Alaska, and were paying attention, and they went down to the Assembly meeting, which is held in a small conference room in City Hall, which is not the normal place for it. Usually it's at the Lusac Library. Usually it's pretty well publicized. In this case, on the municipal website, in the Assembly section, you could not really find this meeting unless you looked really hard. It was buried in a couple of different places. They had to put it in public notices, but they put it all the way at the bottom of the public notices. They buried it. And you couldn't find it in the normal places you look. So by the time they had their meeting today, John, they had about 12 or 15 people from the public that were there in this tiny little conference room. And they very quickly laid on the table an ordinance that takes away the power of the mayor to have any kind of executive powers.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. Basically what they're doing, and I'll have a story up about this at Must Read Alaska. I did post the document at noon. They posted the document, got my hands on it. I posted it as soon as I got it. I think I had a story up at 12:15, had a bunch of typographical errors in it, but man, I was going to get that information out to the public. And so this very, very long ordinance with a lot of whereases, whereas we're having a big meltdown here, and whereas we are the most emotional assembly and we're a bunch of communists, whereas it was just a whole bunch of stuff. Everyone in Anchorage must wear a mask in public. So if you're out in any public space, you have to wear a mask. Now, if you're out on a trail, there aren't people around, you don't have to wear a mask. But if you are in any store or business or with another person in a car that's not a member of your own family, you have to wear a mask if you're older than 2 years old. This is a sweeping mask mandate. It is the most horrific thing I have seen in Anchorage for a long, long time, since Mayor Berkowitz and since acting Mayor Austin Quinn Davidson. So they put it on the table. They got 3 people to support it. That's all you needed to do to put it on the agenda. It's Meg Zalatel's ordinance, and she is the one who actually is subject to recall in October, but it's hard to say whether or not she will be recalled, because remember, Anchorage is now a liberal city. I mean, it's pretty darn liberal. So this thing is insane. Zalatil didn't show up at the meeting. She phoned it in, and so did Pete Peterson, and so did Felix Rivera. And so at the meeting, you found Forrest Dunbar sitting there stoically behind his mask, and Chris Constant and Suzanne LaFrance, the chair, Chris Constant, the vice chair. And they were there, and then the two members from Eagle River, the two conservatives, were there. And at the beginning of the meeting, Suzanne LaFrance told everybody in the room to put on a mask. And she said, I think I see a few people who might need to put on masks, and I would appreciate if you put on a mask. Well, let me tell you, Jamie Allard and Crystal Kennedy were having nothing of this. They didn't put on a mask, and nobody who testified wore masks except for Gene, who always testifies. He testifies at every meeting, and he always wears a mask. But in general, everybody else didn't wear a mask, and she couldn't enforce it because it's city property, and that is controlled by the mayor, and he does not believe in mandating masks. So the people who were there, and the public testimony was afterwards. Now, remember, they didn't pass this ordinance, but what they did do is they got it on the agenda for the 28th. And this is fast tracking. See, normally they would have to wait till the 28th to propose the agenda. And then what they would do is they'd have to wait 2 more weeks for a public hearing and a vote. Well, this way they had their fast little meeting on Monday so they could get it on next week's agenda so that they could have the public testimony and a vote. And John, what I'm really worried about, I am worried that you're going to have both sides down there, and it is going to be absolute pandemonium.
Oh, it's going to be nuts.
I think it's going to be nuts. I think what they've done is they finally poked the beast. But lots of public testimony today, and people were not happy. They were all very critical of this, and some of them were passionate. And a couple of them said they read about it in Must Read Alaska. That's how they knew. They're pretty offended that the assembly seemed so secretive. And the assembly just sat there, and I mean, with the exception of the ones from Eagle River who are conservative, they sat there, and their body language pretty much said it all. They were just pulling away, folding their arms over their chests.
Well,
So
this is kind of what happens when Forrest Dunbar loses and then thinks that his little crew thinks that he should be there as mayor making all the decisions. And then when the new mayor doesn't make the decisions that Forrest makes, they use any means necessary to inject their will into the situation. And something similar like this happened here at the borough when Mayor Pierce first took over. It was very clear that Kelly Cooper did not like anything. She was the assembly president at the time. She did not like anything the mayor was doing, and she didn't have enough votes to essentially do what the Anchorage Assembly is trying to do now. But she did put it on the ballot to move from a strong mayor to a weak mayor, essentially city manager form of government. And right. She tried to get rid of Charlie that way, and it failed miserably, 70-30. But these people will do anything these types of people will do anything in their power. We saw it with Trump, right? He came in guns blazing, and Nancy Pelosi wants to, evict
she started impeachment right away.
Yeah, like 2 days after.
Yeah.
And that one didn't work, so they started another one. And they are going to go after Mayor Bronson on every single thing. And I think they're trying to back him into a corner to maybe not enforce a law that they circumvent from this new ordinance, and then try to kick him out as being a mayor for a recall for not enforcing the law, putting him in a tough position. But I want to encourage conservatives to come out to that assembly meeting, to be respectful, but to let your voice be heard, because you have a situation where the assembly will, if they can do this, they will strip the mayor of all his power.
Yeah.
And he will basically be a shake your hand, cut a ribbon, kiss a baby kind of a mayor.
Well, I want to play for our listeners just a little section of some of the public testimony today. And this little section is coming from Mario Bird, who is an attorney here in town. He's a pretty well-known attorney, and he has been involved in some of the various election kinds of issues. So he's made at least a subspecialty of elections and government matters. And he had some very interesting things to say about the separation of powers and the fact that they were they were running roughshod over it and really setting themselves up for a couple of things. Let's take a listen here.
Thank you, Chair France. My name is Mario Bird. I live and work as an attorney here in Anchorage. I want to briefly address the legality of the separation of powers doctrine that was brought up earlier. The Supreme Court has recently ruled on separation of powers in the context of the state versus recall Dunleavy election, and it held in that case that when it is alleged that there's a separation of powers, that's a viable cause for recall election. I don't want any more recalls. I would rather see our assembly members serve and fulfill their oaths and uphold the laws. What we have here in the municipal code is, number one, a very clear delineation that the assembly has legislative powers, and number two, the mayor has executive powers. That's Title II and Title III. That follows from the Alaska statute, Title 29, that lays out the same dichotomy of powers. You have very competent counsel. I'm not worried about that. But before the assembly takes the step of muddying the waters regarding separation of powers, it should really look at that case, and I'll give you the site. It's State versus Recall Dunleavy 491 Pacific 3rd 343, especially discussion at 365 through 371. It's a viable cause for recall, as recently ruled by our Supreme Court when there is an alleged violation of separation of powers. I'd like the recalls to stop. Please do not violate the separation of powers found in Alaska statute and in the Muni Code. Thank you.
So that's what Mario Bird said to the assembly today. He just begged them to not go down this road because, as you heard him say, this has already been litigated. And the court said, yeah, when you violate a separation of powers issue, yeah, you might be subject to a recall. I think there's a bigger thing here. I think we're gonna see this go to court. They're gonna do this on the 28th. And what I predict, John, is that they will, they'll lay it on the table on the 28th, or they'll have it on the agenda. There will be public testimony that you're only allowed a little bit of public testimony for it. And then there'll be some public testimony at the beginning of the meeting. There will be protesters outside the building. There will be testimony at the end of the meeting. There's going to be pandemonium. They'll pass it. The mayor will veto it. And then they will override the mayor's veto. And then there will be a lawsuit. That's my prediction.
Well, I hope he waits a little bit to veto it. I think he can wait until the next meeting to veto. At least it'll give him a little bit of traction to get more people involved, because oftentimes it's a little too late for folks to show up. They don't get around to hearing about it until it's a meeting too late, 6 months too late. And so yeah. I really hope that the mayor engages his not only supporters but people who maybe didn't vote for him but don't want to see this kind of stuff happen in the city. Their businesses closed down, having to wear a mask. They're going to take this to this extreme. They're going to want to make you wear a mask in your own home eventually. They're going to want to force a vaccine upon every person, man, woman, and child in Anchorage. It will not stop. And so
won't stop.
Folks that are for freedom and for liberty, doesn't matter what party you're affiliated with or not affiliated with, I want to encourage you to get involved in a respectful way during that assembly meeting. Well,
I want to actually thank everybody who took the time away from their busy day today for this very secretive meeting, and that they did not want you to go to because they didn't publicize it well, and they did not issue the documents in advance. And for everybody who went there, I just think they really deserve a round of applause. Do we have an applause button somewhere? That's just perfect. I just want to thank people for taking part in the public process. Now, before we go, John, I want to talk about this situation on the base out here at J Bear. The commander has decided that there's a public health emergency and that everybody on the base needs to mask up and, of course, stay out of places that are where people are not vaccinated and not masked, which would be Anchorage, basically, in the valley. And what's shocking about this is that 95% of the base is vaccinated. They have 100% compliance that they need to reach, and they'll be reaching that compliance in the next few days. So if the vaccine works, and if their masks work on base, why is it that now we have a public health emergency on our base and they're telling them to not go into the community because the community is infected?
Well, that's a good question. I think it goes to, the way I look at it is very simply is that the seasonal flu vaccine only works for one season. And there's a lot of folks out there that tend to think that this is just the seasonal flu or maybe a higher variant of it. And, a seasonal flu vaccine that you took 4 years ago is not going to work today. And so everyone's getting this vaccine, but you're seeing cases still go up in places where there's 95% vaccinated rate, which is a very high vaccinated rate. And that's when they'll start shoving the boosters down your throat. You're going to have to get booster A and B and C and D and all these other things.
Yes, it's just collect the whole set.
It'll never be enough.
Never be enough. No, that's true. And what I'm worried about is that there are a lot of people out there now who were not anti-vaxxers. Like I got my shot. Everybody should know that I got my shot back in January because, I just feel like, okay, I'm okay being a guinea pig. I'm not of childbearing age anymore. I'm fine. So I got my second shot in February. And now I'm saying, you're just pushing these boosters a little too hard. You're pushing the shots too hard. And they've only been out for 9 months. In Alaska, we've only had them out since hardly since the beginning of March was when we started vaccinating here. And yet we really don't know how people will react to this. There's a lot we don't know. It's only been a few months, not been years. It's not been decades like we have with the other vaccines we use. It's been months, and we have a lot of adverse reactions that are going on out there unreported. So I'm just a little bit concerned that the more they push, the more people are going to just say, I'm not only not interested in this one, I'm becoming an anti-vaxxer for all of them. I don't trust the medical community at all anymore. And I'm not going to get these other ones either. And I think that's the danger that they're setting up with this intense push that they have. And of course, it's coming from the top. It's coming from President Biden. I think that what you'll see people getting more, different kinds of diseases that even the flu shot, if people say, boy, I sure don't trust them on that COVID vaccine. And I'm not even going to get my flu shot anymore. Just don't trust them anymore. Wow.
Yeah.
We're in trouble. Yeah.
And their strategy to get conservatives vaccinated is like the opposite of what I would do in any sort of playbook. It's,
absolutely.
If it goes back to, high school dating, if you want to date, if you're interested in somebody, pretend like you're not interested.
That'd be cool.
And then
play
they'll
cool.
be interested. And they are this whole idea of mandates and forcing it upon people that want freedom and liberty is going to have the opposite effect that they are trying to get. And again, I don't think if somebody wants to get a vaccine, great. I could really care less. It's actually none of my business if they want to get a vaccine or not. It's the mandate that I will be adamantly against until the day I die.
Yeah. Well, everybody, we're running out of time. And for the rest of the week, just check out mustreadalaska.com. And then when you're there, you can sign up for the Must Read Alaska newsletter. Just drop your email address in the little box there. And then you will get an amazing newsletter 3 times a week. And it'll get you all caught up on all the news that you care about if you're conservative. Scott Levesque on the board, thank you so much for producing this show. You really make it all come together, and we really appreciate you. And I hope you get a show out this week. I want to hear more from you on the Wednesday edition of Must Read Alaska. And if you support Must Read Alaska, I appreciate you so much. You're the one who keeps this show running, keeps the website up and going, and keeps that newsletter going. Thank you, everybody. Until next week, we're going to be staying here strong against the liberal news media, and we're just signing off from somewhere in Alaska.